What is fear if not a trembling echo of something deeper? A message from the unseen, a vibration through the body that says, pay attention. Most of us grow up thinking fear is the enemy, that it must be conquered, silenced, pushed down. But perhaps fear has never been here to stop us. Perhaps it's been here all along to awaken us. Fear at its core is not a flaw. It is not a malfunction. It is a biological marvel, a product of evolution that has protected humanity since its dawn. Within the amygdala, the most primal part of our brain, fear is born. It doesn't speak in words, but in instinct. It's the spark that once saved us from predators, that helped us react without thought when danger was near. Yet in the modern world where lions no longer chase us, fear hasn't gone extinct. It has simply changed form. Today, fear disguises itself as hesitation. It masks itself in overthinking. It dresses up as logic, caution, procrastination. It whispers, not screams. And because it whispers, we rarely challenge it. We call it wisdom when often it's simply the echo of discomfort. But fear has not become less meaningful. If anything, it's become more refined. It shows up not when we are in true danger, but when we are about to expand. We feel fear when we are on the edge of something unfamiliar, a new job, a new identity, a truth we've never spoken aloud. And that is where the invitation lies. Fear is a compass. It points not toward danger, but toward growth. It tells us where our identity feels threatened, where our sense of control is being asked to surrender. The heart races, the throat tightens, not because we are breaking, but because we are cracking open. Because something old is loosening and something new is asking to be born. What if we stopped asking, how do I get rid of this fear, and started asking, what is this fear trying to reveal? Psychology tells us that fear is often tied to perceived loss. The loss of safety, the loss of love, the loss of approval, the loss of control. And those perceived losses trigger the same emotional circuits as physical pain. That is why fear feels so real, because in the brain it is. But it is also plastic. The brain can learn. Neuroplasticity shows us that repeated exposure to discomfort can rewire the way we experience fear. Courage, then, is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to meet it repeatedly, gently, until it changes shape. Fear is also a revealer of value. We do not fear what does not matter to us. No one fears being mediocre at something they don't care about. We fear failure most when success would mean something profound. We fear vulnerability when connection deeply matters. We fear being seen when authenticity is begging to be expressed. In this light, fear becomes sacred. It becomes a doorway into our truest values. When fear arises, it marks the edge of our current self, the border where our old stories dissolve and the new ones have yet to be written. Fear says this is your edge and this is your moment. From a spiritual perspective, fear is not the opposite of love. It is the resistance to love. It is the contraction before the opening, the silence before the song. And if we can sit with that contraction, hold it, breathe through it, we create the space in which transformation can take place. Imagine for a moment that fear is not trying to stop you, it is trying to initiate you. That every time your hands shake before speaking, every time your chest tightens before leaping, something inside you is whispering, this matters. So how do we answer the invitation? First, we become aware. Awareness is the beginning of alchemy. When we can witness fear not as truth but as sensation, we gain space. We are no longer inside the storm. We are the one who sees the storm. We say, fear is here. And in that moment, we become something bigger than fear. Next, we breathe. The breath is the bridge between the unconscious and the conscious. When fear arises, the breath shortens, the body tightens. But we can reverse this. By breathing deeply, we signal to the nervous system we are safe. We are choosing presence. And in presence, fear softens. Then we listen. Every fear has a voice, and every voice wants to be heard. Instead of drowning it out with noise or numbing it with distraction, we ask, what do you need me to know? Often the answer is simple. I'm afraid of being alone. I don't want to fail again. I want to belong. And we respond not with shame, but with compassion. Of course, you feel this way. It makes sense. And finally, we act, not in rebellion against fear, but in relationship with it. We take one step, small, honest, clear. Action in the presence of fear is the foundation of courage. Not recklessness, not suppression, but embodied intentional movement. Because the truth is fear will never disappear, but it can transform from paralyzing to purposeful, from shadowy to sacred, from a wall to a window. The invitation then is this: to walk with fear, not away from it, to see it as a teacher, not a threat, to ask every time it visits what part of me is trying to grow right now, and to listen, truly listen to what it reveals. You do not need to conquer fear. You need to converse with it, to sit beside it, to honor its presence, because fear at its best is not a warning. Let us now go deeper. To truly transform fear, we must understand its roots not just in emotion, but in biology. Fear originates in the limbic system, primarily the amygdala, which constantly scans the environment for threats. This is not metaphorical, it is anatomical. When the amygdala senses danger, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, triggering what we commonly call the fight or flight response. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your muscles tense. This is your body preparing for survival. But here's the twist: the amygdala cannot distinguish between a tiger in the forest and a critical email from your boss. It only reads intensity. And so modern fear, far from being about survival, becomes entangled in ego identity and social context. This is where neuroception comes in, a term coined by neuroscientist Stephen Porges. Neuroception refers to the nervous system's ability to detect safety or danger without conscious thought. We may feel fear simply by walking into a room where we sense judgment or exclusion. The trigger may not be visible, but the reaction is real. This leads us to the concept of the window of tolerance developed in trauma psychology. When we are within our window of tolerance, we can process emotions, think clearly, and respond intentionally. When fear pushes us outside that window, we move into hyperarousal panic, rage, anxiety, or hypoarousal numbness, shutdown. Awareness of this helps us track not just the presence of fear, but its effect on our capacity to choose. It is not fear that disables us. It is fear that overwhelms our window of tolerance and makes us reactive rather than responsive. And yet, even here, there is wisdom. The body is not betraying us. It is alerting us. The key is not to shut it down, but to expand our window, to increase our capacity to be with fear and stay conscious. This is what mindfulness, somatic work, breath work, and presence training aim to do. They do not eliminate fear. They make us larger than it. From here, we turn to the dimension of philosophy. Fear has been a subject of inquiry for centuries. For Friedrich Nietzsche, fear was not a force to be dismissed but embraced. He believed that confronting fear was essential to creating one's destiny. He who has a why to live, Nietzsche wrote, can bear almost anyhow. Fear then becomes the crucible in which meaning is tested. In Buddhist psychology, fear arises from attachment, from clinging to what is impermanent. When we fear loss, we are often resisting the truth of change. But the Buddha taught that all things are impermanent. To recognize this is not to become indifferent, but to become free. The fear of death, of rejection, of failure, all are rooted in the illusion of permanence. To accept change is to loosen fear's grip. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, spoke of fear as the guardian of the shadow. The shadow is the part of the psyche we have disowned: our shame, our rage, our hidden desires. To individuate, to become whole, one must face the shadow, and fear stands at the gate. One does not become enlightened, Jung wrote, by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Thus, fear is not darkness. It is the doorway to the darkness we refuse to name. And only by walking through that doorway can we meet our fullness. Now let us return to the idea of invitation. What is fear inviting us toward? There are many forms. It may be an invitation to speak the truth you've silenced, to step away from what is comfortable, to claim what you've longed for, to forgive what has wounded you, to begin again. Each fear carries a unique invitation written in the ink of your own becoming. But most of us miss it because we are busy trying to escape the discomfort. Yet discomfort is the envelope. Inside is the message. So let us open the envelope. Let us consider the different forms this invitation might take. 1. The invitation to grow. Fear that arises when you are outgrowing an identity, when your soul stretches but your story has not caught up. This is not fear of danger, but fear of expansion. Growth feels like risk to the part of you that has grown used to smallness. 2. The invitation to heal. Fear that comes from old wounds being touched, not because they are being reopened, but because they are being invited into awareness. This fear asks, can you face what once hurt you without collapsing? Can you meet it now with the tools and wisdom you did not have before? 3. The invitation to surrender. Fear that comes when control is slipping. This fear is the ego's panic. But underneath something deeper whispers, let go, trust. Life is moving you, not abandoning you. 4. The invitation to speak. Fear that arises in moments of visibility, when you are about to say something true. This is the fear of being seen not because you are weak, but because your truth carries power. 5. The invitation to act. Fear that comes not from overthinking, but from knowing. When your body knows it's time, when your intuition says yes, but your mind hesitates. This is the fear of embodiment. In each of these invitations, fear is not blocking the path. It is the path. So how do we practice walking it? We begin by returning to the body. The body is the canvas on which fear paints its signals. Breath, pulse, temperature, posture all become clues. Somatic awareness is not separate from spiritual practice. It is its foundation. For what is spirit if not presence in the body? A simple practice. When fear arises, pause. Place a hand on your heart. Breathe slowly into the belly. Say silently, this too belongs. Feel the fear not to feed it, but to befriend it. This practice does not erase fear, but it keeps you in relationship with it. And that is what transforms it. There are other tools: journaling, naming your fears with honesty and tenderness, movement, shaking, dancing, walking, allowing fear to discharge physically. Visualization, imagining your future self who has walked through this fear and emerged expanded. Dialogue, talking to your fear as though it were a younger version of you. But the most powerful practice of all is choice. Not the dramatic leap, not the grand gesture, but the quiet, deliberate act of saying, I will not let fear define this moment. I will not let it speak for me. Because at some point you realize fear is not here to be obeyed. It is here to be integrated. And when you integrate it, you gain not just courage, but clarity. Not just boldness, but wisdom. The journey with fear is not one of war, but of relationship. You do not need to conquer it. You need to understand it, to listen, to walk with it until it no longer blocks your light. And when that happens, you do not become fearless. You become free. It is the voice of your becoming, and your becoming is the most sacred thing you will ever do. But let us not stop at understanding. Let us now walk into the space of embodied practice where insight becomes transformation through action. Fear, as we know, lives not just in the mind. It resides in the body. It echoes through our posture, our breath, our eyes, our hesitation. So the work of meeting fear must also be physical, practical, repeatable. Here are 5 integrated practices to help you build a new relationship with fear. Each one is a tool not for suppression, but for invitation. Not to shut fear down, but to let it speak clearly and then walk beside you rather than ahead of you. 1. The breath as anchor. When fear grips you, it often hijacks your breathing. It shortens it, makes it shallow, panicked. But you can reverse this not by force, but by focus. Try this. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Hold gently for 2. Exhale slowly through the mouth for a count of 6. Pause for 2. Repeat this cycle for 3 to 5 minutes. The body is listening. When you breathe with intention, you tell your nervous system, we are not in danger. You are safe to soften. This opens the doorway for clarity and decision-making. 2. Fear dialogue journaling. Set a timer for 10 minutes. At the top of the page, write, Dear fear, what do you want me to know? Then write whatever comes. Don't judge. Don't censor. Let the voice be messy, anxious, irrational. When the timer ends, read it. Then write back, Dear fear, I hear you. Thank you. And here's what I know. This practice builds emotional literacy. It helps fear feel heard and helps you retrieve your own authority. 3. Posture reclamation. Fear curls us inward. Shoulders shrink, gaze lowers, breath tightens. But posture isn't just a result of emotion, it also shapes emotion. You can rewire your internal state by shifting how you hold yourself. Stand tall. Roll your shoulders back. Feel your feet grounded. Lift your chin. Breathe into your spine. Do this not as performance, but as prayer. Not to impress, but to remember who you are beyond fear. 4. The courage visualization. Close your eyes and picture yourself not fearless, but deeply grounded. Picture a version of you who has walked through the fear you currently face. What are they wearing? How do they move? What do their eyes hold? But ask them, what did you learn on the other side of this fear? Listen, let them speak. Then breathe deeply and bring one element of their presence into your now, a word, a gesture, a feeling. Carry it forward. 5. The micro act of defiance. Each day choose one small act that goes against fear's instruction. If fear says don't speak, speak even briefly. If it says don't show your art, share one sentence, one image. If it says look someone in the eye. These micro acts are not about winning. They are about reclaiming. They say I am not owned by avoidance. They build a bridge between knowing and becoming. Let these practices be your rituals. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. Fear visits daily. So must your presence. And remember, transformation is not a sudden leap. It is a series of honest steps taken again and again in the direction of truth. Every time you choose presence over panic, every time you listen rather than flee, every time you breathe instead of brace, you are transforming. You are becoming. You are walking through the sacred fire, not to burn away who you are, but to reveal who you've always been. And so we arrive at the end of this journey, or rather the beginning of yours, because fear will return. It always does. But now it will return to someone who is no longer afraid of being afraid. The next time your heart beats louder before you speak, you'll know this is not a threat, it is a threshold. The next time your stomach tightens before you leap, you'll understand this is not weakness. It is the body's way of preparing for evolution. Fear is not here to close your life. It is here to deepen it, not to crush your voice, but to call it forth, not to bind your steps, but to bless your becoming. Let this not be the kind of video you watch and forget. Let this be a turning point, a quiet vow, a sacred pause, to meet fear with breath, to greet it with respect, to walk with it not as enemy, but as elder. And when you do, you will begin to sense the truth that fear has been walking with you all along, not to trap you in limitation, but to guide you through the fire toward your truest form. The life you long for does not live on the other side of fear. It lives within your willingness to welcome it. That is the real invitation, and it has always had your name on it.